Welcome everyone, hope you're doing well. In this episode, we will cover constructors, what they are and what they're used for. So let's go. Don't forget this channel have a dedicated Discord server. It's a place where you can talk about the episodes and tutorials of this channel. Maybe you wonder something about the last episode that was a bit unclear. Or maybe you just want to say hello. And for those who wish to go the extra mile to support the channel, there's a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page, and also there's a membership option here on YouTube. Thank you. So what is a constructor? We have covered methods previously, both a normal one and also the main method, public static void main. A constructor is the special, or if you will, the main method of a class. While the public static void main method is the main method for the project, where the code execution starts in your project. The constructor is where the first code is executed in a class when you make an object out of it. I will add a constructor to our house class here. Public house, and like so. You can see that this method is a constructor by two ways. The first one being there is no return type. We're not returning anything, and that it's the same name as the class. A constructor needs to have the same name as the class. And usually you put the constructor at the top of the class. A class does not need to have a constructor. It depends on the use case of that class itself. Whenever you make an object of a class, you call the constructor of that class. Let me demonstrate. We can just take copy one of these lines, one of these printouts. We're gonna put it in the house constructor and say hello inside house. And I think we can actually remove some of these older methods. We don't need them right now. And we can remove that. So if I run this now, I should be able to see two printouts of this because we make two objects here. We're making an object here and also an object here. So if I run it, we should see at least two printouts from house. And we did. Perfect. But if we didn't create the object, we just declared it, like so, we are not calling the constructor of that class. So now we only get one printout because we only made one object, but we made two here, so that's why we're getting two printouts. Why do we need constructors in the first place? Well, when we create an object, or two in this case over here, we're just saying a new house and a new house. But what if we have this blueprint, this class of a house, whenever we create an object out of it, we want the user to specify what color this specific house is. It's going to be the same house, but every time we create an object out of this class, it needs a color. So I'm just going to add some code here, string color. And don't worry, we're gonna get in what strings are and so on later down the road. I'm just using it as an example. So now if I save this, we're gonna get some errors here, and that's because we are asking for a string text. In this case, strings are text, but we don't give it here. So that's why we have errors. But let's say I want my house to be red and I want your house to be blue. That way, the constructor is asking for a color, and when we create the house, or make objects, as it's called, we're also giving it a color. So this house will be red, and this house will be blue. And of course, we could increase the number of inputs. Maybe the house should also have a number. Maybe we should specify how many floors it should have, so on and so on. This is a way for us to make sure that every time we create an object out of house, we also need to specify the color, because the color will be different from each object that we create, if we want to. So we can change the color of the house, but it will still be the house. And to demonstrate that this house is red and this house will be blue, I'm going to change the code a little bit here. This house is, and then I'm going to plus color. So if everything works right, then the first house, my house, should be red and your house will be blue. Let's take a look. So this house is red, which is my house, and your house is blue. So it's the same house, but different colors. And we could increase this with numbers and whatnot. This way we can create object with different values even though it's the same type of object. How do we call methods inside other classes? We know that whenever we create an object, we automatically call the code inside the constructor. And to call a method inside a class, we first need a method inside the class. So let's just make one here. Public void method inside house. And whenever we call this method, I'm going to copy this line. But instead of saying welcome to the new tutorial, I will say hello inside the house. And to call this method inside our house class, we need to make an object out of this house. And we have two of them. We have my house and your house. So right after we have created my house, we say my house dot, and then we look up with the name method inside the house. And we can do the same for your house. Dot method inside house. And of course I need to save here because it's not saved. You can see the little star there. That means that this class is not saved. But if I save it, it recognizes, there was a method in there. So if I try it now, we have welcome to the new tutorial. That's the first line of code. Then we create a object here and we give it the value red. This house is red. Then we say my house dot method inside the house, hello inside the house, and we print this line out. And the same goes for the next one. If we're trying to call a method in an object that have not yet been made, we declare it, but we do not create it, we're going to get an error that says the local variable of your house may not have been initialized, meaning we haven't created the object yet. So we need to make sure that we create the object before we call any methods inside that object. Can we call methods inside a class without first having to make an object of that class? Yes, we have already done this in this tutorial. And I did remove those methods, but let's go ahead and bring one back. So in our first lesson, I'm going to create a public static void method 1. And I'm just going to copy this line and paste it here. Code in a static method. And this method right here have one word, static, that these methods do not have. And the word static means that this method will be able to be reached or called without having to make an object out of this class, just like we did in the beginning of this tutorial. So right here, after we call yourhouse.method inside the house, let's just call method 1 inside this class. And then we run it. Nothing new here, we did that before, it worked just as well. But if I remove this static word, we get an error. It's asking if we want to change the method 1 into a static method so we can call it from a static method already. As you've probably seen that this main method that we have for the entire project is static. A static method can only call other static methods. They cannot call non-static methods. The only way a static method can call a non-static method is if we make an object out of a class and then call the method inside that class. Just like we have done here. If I just try to call house.method inside the house, it wouldn't work. So to demonstrate, let's say I don't create a method, I just call houseclass.method inside house. It will say change method inside house to static, create a new instance, object in this case, and so on and so on. But if I made this method static, save it, now we can all of a sudden call it because the error went away. But we're not going to keep this static. I just want to demonstrate how it works. And we can remove this. And for us to call this method, that is giving us an error right now, we need to make an object out of this class and then call that object's method 1. Consider that our main method for the entire project, being public static void main, is actually not part of the first lesson class. It just happens to be located at, but it's not really part of that class. So we could just as well have a standalone class that's only containing this little part, and then we can call and make an object out of first lesson. But the code is just here, but it's not really in the class in simple terms. So for us to do call this method, it's actually not a static method anymore, it's a non-static method, because we removed the static keyword. So for us to call this method, we first need to create a object out of this class. So we say first lesson is equal to new first lesson. And then we say first lesson dot method 1. And now if I run it, we will be able to see this printout. So let's just move this one up a little bit and run it. Code in a non-static method. And that is correct. And we don't have a constructor here. That's okay, we don't always need one. It's just an option for you to use. That was the end of this episode. I hope that you now know what a constructor is and how to access methods inside a class. Both static methods and also non-static methods. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you like the content, and also have a wonderful day. Bye.